I'm excited you're here with me today to paint this really fun sea turtle. I used granulating colors and allowed it to get a lot of blooms, and I didn't really worry about details. Here's the palette I used. I'll include all the information in the description. To get started, what you want to do is paint the negative shape of the turtle. So while it looks like an outline, we're going to blend it in pretty quickly. But what I'm trying to do is show the shape of the turtle inside of the paint marks. And now moving really quickly, I'm going to add water and the additional pigments just to get a fun wash. So just go crazy, add your background colors as you like. You can have it be extra watery, you can tilt your paper, you can splash, you can dab. It's really anything goes, and you can't go wrong here, so don't overthink it. I'm not looking at the reference photo at all, really. I'm just trying to have some fun, watch the beautiful colors spread, and admire the granulation colors and what they do. And the more you disrupt them, the better granulation and separation you'll get. Granulated paints love water. They love when you go in and disturb them. That's when they really shine. I'm making sure to go to the edge since I taped it off because I want that nice clean border when I remove the tape. And I'm not too worried about my turtle. You know, it looks a little jaggedy, but that's fine. By the time we add the spots and a bit of an outline, it'll be fine. And just embrace the blooms. That's beautiful. In fact, it reflects a lot of what I see in the reference photo. So by blooms, I mean add water, and it will push the pigment out. You can also add pigment to a wet surface and it will burst. Okay, so now let's start on the nose. Add a little bit of water first and then introduce the mixture of pigments. So you can have, I would say, 3 different browns we're using here, and I'm just alternating to get a nice variety. And again, don't be a slave to your reference photo. The purpose of this sea turtle is to enjoy yourself and have fun. Okay, so starting now on the back shell, I concentrate on the larger ones first, and that will define the shape of the shell. And I'm just taking this opportunity just to add a few of the underlying layers. So I wanted a little warmth on his neck, so I'm just introducing a bit of the raw sienna light. Now back to the shell, I'm going to the neck shape. So I'm just doing one at a time. The pigment will only follow where the water is, but I'm using this opportunity to introduce second and third colors so that you get the beautiful blends. And the spots don't have to be exact. In fact, the more irregular they are, the more free-spirited it feels, which is what we're going for here. And you can see I'm holding my brush at the end mostly so that I'm just very free and loose, and I'm trying to work quickly so that while the water is wet, the paint has a chance to spread nicely. And I just disrupted again. The granulation loves to be disrupted. So introducing other colors, introducing water, that'll all benefit the look and feel we're going for. So just move your way around the back of the turtle. And just vary the colors that you're adding for some interest. because they're all going to blend in really nicely, and overall it'll get the feeling of uniformity. And while we don't have a sketch and I'm not worried about being exact, I am trying to capture the shape of the shell. So I'm being mindful that the spots down the back are in kind of a row and they're a little bit larger than the ones that curve around the edges. So do your best to, you know, capture that feeling of circularity and curve. And you can see mine are touching in places and not others, and it's really fine. This is a great lesson of just letting go of control and letting the paints have fun and enjoy the process. In fact, this would be a great candidate to paint in your sketchbook so that you really let loose and don't worry about the outcome. So now I'm just going around the edge and I can better define the shape of the turtle, where you can see I'm going over some of the background wash where I got a little bit inaccurate in my shape. So I'm just trying to do a better job of representing the actual shape. And then while I'm doing this, I'm looking around to say which colors need to be added. So in the feet, they're more like the neck or the feet, the fins. So I want them to be the raw sienna light as a background, and then I'll just use the singular darker brown. And here I wanted it to be a little richer, so I'm just layering more colors on top. Because watercolor is transparent, they'll show through, so we're getting a lot of texture and dimension. So here on the fins, just do your best to kind of follow the shapes. You know, there's smaller shapes, there's larger shapes, and that will create the feeling of the actual fin. And I'm just going in and varying the colors, or not the color, but the tone, so that it looks a little more interesting and it reflects more of what is happening on the back of the shell. The paper here is really not as wet, so there's not as much spread. It's more of a wet on dry technique. So you can see the edges are a little crisper. And just adding a few of the smaller details with my small brush, so that we're getting a nice variety of large brush marks, small brush marks. And then here, I didn't want the back of the turtle to be white, showing the paper. So I'm just blending these colors together, liking the fact that they're kind of spreading and moving into each other, because in nature, that's what would happen. And you can fix some of your spots like I'm doing here, just so that they look a little more uniform if you need to. And here I really like, in the reference photo, there's kind of a glowy effect down his back. So what I'm doing is I'm allowing a bloom to happen by just painting water, and that's going to push some of the pigment away, and then I can go in on top with another glaze to capture some of that light. And just look across your turtle. Where do you need some shading for it to feel accurate and dimensional? And then now what I'm doing is I'm adding that the small strokes, calligraphy marks, for again some variety and texture, and to show the wrinkles on his neck and his legs. And just using this opportunity to kind of really tighten it up a bit. Where do I need more shading, a little bit darker? And I realized, hey, let's add an eye. I hadn't added the eye. It's hardly visible in the reference photo. So from this perspective, we would only see the one eye. So I've added that on the right. And now what I want to do is more of that calligraphy marking, where I'm just going in and adding some strokes, almost like an ink wash on top, just for some interest and again, variety and texture. So I'm not trying to outline every shape, but I'm just adding a little definition where I feel like it has a little more shading or dimension on the back. You know, he's not super smooth, he's kind of bumpy. And you can just blend in where you don't want it to be too sharp. And I'm doing the same on the edge just so that he doesn't look like he's a puzzle. And I'm trying to use very painterly marks. I want this to feel very loose. Now for the fun part. For the background, this is really going to make the turtle pop off. We're going to go back over our wash with more glazing. So vary your colors. I'm switching off from the turquoise to the blue to the green, and I'm just mixing in so that we get a lot more depth in that water. And again, the beauty of the watercolor being transparent is they will show through. So while it's wet, you can go ahead and get more bleeds like I'm doing here with the blue and allow it to spread, and it's just going to add more and more interest. Same thing with the blooms here. By adding water and paint, it's going to encourage more of the texture to occur, which is what I'm going for. And just blend in so you don't get a very contrived spot. We don't want it to look like it has polka dots. So when it starts to get too sharp, I just introduce a little water to the edge to encourage that blending. But this is just a very intuitive process. Where do you feel like it needs some color? There's no right or wrong. Don't try to follow mine exactly. And then I'm adding in a little bit more depth by doing some splatters on top. And here's where I'm going to take advantage of those blooms that I introduced and add a little bit of brightness with the Hansa yellow light, just to go over some of those areas so that we pick up some of that warmth. And that's it. What a fun exercise. I could do this all day long. In fact, I might want to paint some more. I hope you also enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.